This is my first edition Dreamcast. Yes, it is the original Dreamcast that came out day one, $99.99, and paid $199 for it. I love this machine so much, and not like in like an intimate way, like Dreamcast. I love it because of the amount of entertainment it gave me in its short lifespan. It didn't live as long as the guy who got stabbed for one. You guys know about that in the UK? The girl who stabbed the guy for the Dreamcast. She was 16 years old. 16-year-old girl wanted to stab a dude for a Dreamcast. That's crazy. Shout out to the ladies of the UK, I guess.
I'm sorry to hear that your grandma passed away. I actually am that. Obviously, I'm gonna be upset about that.
Is that equity? Anyway, a thing that I learned recently is Dreamcast is short for Dream Broadcast, which I'm glad it was just called Dreamcast because Dream Broadcast sounds like there's going to be advertising there that I really don't want and can't skip the ads. Unfortunately, it was the last Sega console because they made a lot of poor decisions that were maybe smart business decisions when they were having the meetings, but ultimately it shot them all the way through the foot. And the console only lived for 2.5 years, but the impactful 2.5 years it had were impactful, like a dream. You know, you just wake up and you have that one dream you just can't forget. That's the Dreamcast. They had some issues behind the scenes. Sega was lying and stuff, saying it was a 128-bit console. That wasn't a thing. It was still just 32-bit, but they were doing all sorts of business math and stuff, saying it was something it wasn't. You know how businesses do. You know how Peter Molyneux did.
This is true technology that science fiction has not even written about.
Don't forget your mum's birthday.
And this works today.
I'ma keep on lying to you. Yeah.
Where's Milo, Peter? There were certain features that just worked for the system. It was Sega. Sega knew video games. They had been in it since the Master System, right? Was there something for the Master System that I just didn't have access to? Irregardless, they knew games. The issue is they were going up against Sony, the PlayStation 2, and people really just wanted to watch The Matrix. Whoa. The highest sold DVD around that time. But the Dreamcast didn't have a DVD player. They saved a little bit of money and had gigabyte drives, GD drives. It didn't work out because they were trying to save money and didn't want to pay the people who own the rights. Sony owns the rights to CD licensing, the hardware, and to Blu-ray. Sony's got their hand in their pocket. Wow.
What you got on my 40, homie?
I thought you had $200.
I do, but I won't spend Red's money.
I'm broke.
Near the end, it was desperate. Sega had like bundles they were trying to sell with DVD players, but nobody wanted a whole bunch of extra hardware. It was one thing in one place. You could do all the things in that one place, and that was innovative. One of the other beasts they had to deal with was EA, who banned them over some hardware drama, 3D something or other, something that don't really matter to me. Another thing EA wanted, and Sega was like, nah, you asking for a lot of commitment, but I'm not trying to be in that kind of relationship because I'm seeing somebody else right now, is exclusivity to sports games. So because of those two strikes from EA was like, I'm gonna block you on all of our social media platforms. And then they couldn't have a relationship anymore. That means the Sega Dreamcast lost access to the entire EA Sports catalog, not to mention The Sims, SSX. They couldn't really have an exclusive sports relationship with EA because they had a relationship with Midway. And Midway brought us Ready to Rumble Boxing. Midway, the makers of NBA Jam, they were feeding other sports games because they made sports games that EA couldn't feed. I do have to say, this is a console that is a console for the sake of gaming. It sucks that Sega got shot in the foot for making a disc-based console that is exclusively a console when Nintendo make consoles that are exclusively consoles all the time. It could have fit perfectly in the middle if the game was played right, but there was a lot of sabotage going on behind the scenes. Now I think I understand why Japan don't really do great business deals with Xbox. Speaking of Xbox, you notice the Windows logo on my Dreamcast? Yeah, the Xbox is kind of Dreamcast little protege, you know what I mean? Xbox was the little homie to Dreamcast. They didn't really want to have to bring up a little homie, but the little homie had value. They was bringing in software. You could potentially cross-platform your Dreamcast with a PC and maybe even port some PC games down to the Dreamcast because Windows made a whole OS for the Dreamcast. You could browse the internet. I used to do my homework on my Dreamcast. You gotta think about this. This was the first video game console that had online access and online multiplayer. That is legendary. Sega deserves far more flowers for this console than they really get. During the little Microsoft Xbox days, Xbox, you know, they was in the little studio learning about the game industry because they was also in secret working on their little console as well as Xbox. So it was Xbox and then there was Windows CE. And Windows CE was like one identity, keeping the eye out, you know what I mean? Because it could go this way. And then they had Xbox, which was the real young buck ready for the streets in the wings. Xbox came out swinging after the Dreamcast died. And now, really, when you think about it, the Dreamcast died so the Xbox could live, and the Xbox is the next generation, homie, fighting for the legacy of the Dreamcast. This is why I'm team Xbox too, you know what I mean? Like, I had PlayStations and stuff. I love my PlayStations and stuff, but I had family members who did drugs and they stole them. But we're not talking about Sony right now. There's a lot of ways the Dreamcast could have gone. Lockheed Martin was playing around with some stuff, Nvidia was playing around with some stuff. It had a whole lot of potential, a lot of it because Sega was reaching out to the West in a different way. Sony has and has had its fingers latched on in the East, and it's working, and I'm not hating at all. Like, they are powerful. Where Sega wanted to go different, they wanted to build that bridge. So many games that were Dreamcast originals were ported over to the Xbox and can still be played on Steam to this day. They can be played on Xbox to this day. They're about to bring back the Xbox original games that you own so you can play them on a cloud kind of forever because they're trying to preserve video games. Maybe I'll talk about that. Maybe I won't. I don't know. There were so many innovative things they did. They almost turned these things, video virtual memory unit, VMU, they almost turned these things into MP3 players. They were having so many different ideas, but ultimately they were shot in the foot because they started playing a different game that didn't involve the Matrix. Before I go, pulling out my old Dreamcast, I realized something. I've had a love for fighting games that goes deeper than I initially thought. This stick, I have 2 of them. I've done a lot of fighting, but I don't know where that love for fighting has gone.